Believe it or not, this fat guy's actually on steroids. I know what you're thinking. Wow, that's amazing. How could that be? Well, I'm going to tell you about all the things I've experienced and know from being on testosterone replacement therapy. And I'll tell you, it's not what you expect. Somewhere around 2015, I started testing my blood work religiously. Every 6 months. It was more because I was in the fitness space and I really wanted to make sure that I was in shape and doing the right thing. It was a hobby of mine. I was very passionate about it. I wasn't stepping on a stage and I certainly hadn't done any performance enhancing drugs in my past, but I wanted to be in better shape and I wanted to know that I was healthy, so I got my blood work pulled. And one of the first things I noticed when my dad, who got his recent blood work pulled, was that my testosterone was actually lower than his. Mine was in the, call it 700 range, and my dad's was close to 900 at almost 70 years old. I thought to myself, well, that's kind of f***ed up. And that led me to another blood test about 6 months later, and my testosterone numbers had dropped a little bit. Well, flash forward 7 years, and my numbers had dropped off every single year for 7 years. So much so that at the beginning of 2022, I decided that I was going to get another blood test, and if it was below where it had been before, I was going to go see a doctor for it. Well, my number was 369. Technically speaking, my doctor treats anything below 400, and that led me to testosterone replacement therapy. And I know if you're looking at me thinking, well, that guy doesn't look like he's buff and he's not jacked. Well, spoiler alert, I am not. I'm actually a little bit overweight. But one of the things I do have is a ton of energy, and I sleep my ass off and I feel amazing. So let's do away with some of the myths. A lot of people don't want to talk about being on testosterone replacement therapy, or they do it with their friends and their buddies. They don't talk about it on social media because they're afraid of this negative connotation. It's a performance enhancing drug, or it's going to give you a heart attack, or are you trying to get big, or are you just trying to increase your numbers? No, none of these things are really relevant. What I will tell you though is most doctors you go see, particularly endocrinologists, they're not specialists. There are a few specialists out there like Dr. Cabral, who went on the Mind Pump podcast with Adam, Justin, and Sal, and Doug, and those guys, and he talked about it at length. He had 30 years plus experience in the practice of literally hormone therapy. And I would tell you, someone like him is much better a subject matter expert than going to see your doctor and endocrinologist. Why? Because the normal range is from 300 to 1100. And me being at 369 was technically considered normal. But where I was 7 years earlier was almost 500 milligrams per deciliter higher number than where it was when I went in to get tested the last time. So that's a big delta. And I started to feel terrible. Now, the shocker for most people is I didn't have any libido issues. It wasn't that I wasn't physically aroused and I wasn't sleeping with my wife. It was actually I felt really tired. I had no energy. I couldn't sleep very well. And no matter what I did, no matter how tight my macros were, no matter how low my calories were, I just couldn't cut weight. So much so that my coach at the time that I was working with, because I really liked doing this and I just really liked being in shape, was telling me, you got to be cheating, Chris. You got to be cheating on your diet. Well, I wasn't. And no matter what I did, the weight just wouldn't come off. And as a guy who'd been doing this for 7 years at the time, I knew what macros and things to eat that actually caused me to lose weight over time and the things to do. I was doing 20 minutes of cardio every single day. I was lifting for an hour every single day. Some days I'd do more, some days I'd do less. We added in more cardio and nothing moved the needle as far as weight goes. So I thought, okay, there's a problem. And I knew it was only getting worse with time. Finally, it got so bad that I was exhausted so much that the last doctor visit, before I even went in, I knew that whatever those results were, I was probably going to have to go see a doctor, and I was glad I did. So let's talk about the injections, okay? I chose to go an injection path, which is what my doctor recommended. Now, there are things like pellets you can have injected into your body that last for about a month, from what I understand. You can also get injections twice a week versus once, which apparently levels out your peaks and valleys of how your testosterone rises and falls out. That really comes down to your personal preference and your personal biology. Don't think that you're going to watch this video and you're all of a sudden going to come up with a solution of what it looks like for you. Everybody's biology, everybody's physiology is very different. So for what works for you, what works for me, they're not going to be the same thing. So for me, I started out at 150 milligrams of testosterone once a week, but that caused my numbers to spike. And any good physician is going to test you pretty regularly when you start and start expanding out the distance in between tests as your body starts to normalize. It took me about 3 to 4 months to normalize. And when I started, that 150 milligrams of testosterone shot my testosterone above 1,500 milligrams per deciliter, which is off the charts. When they test you for this, it only goes up to 1,500. After that, they're not going to tell you anything else at that point in time. It's just going to say 1,500 plus, and I was off the charts. So when I tested was a week later than the day I took my shot, 3 p.m. in the afternoon. That was my lowest point in the day. If you test in the morning, your testosterone's higher. So the lowest my testosterone ever was well above 1,500, and that is an healthy level. And there's some debate there, and I don't care if you're taking it for bodybuilding or what you're taking it for, but that is the clinical definition of unhealthy, and what you choose to do with it, that's on you. I know bodybuilders are taking 500 milligrams a week. I know bodybuilders taking 1,100 milligrams a week. I can't tell you that's healthy or normal, and that's certainly not where I wound up. I actually wound up at 110 milligrams per week. For me, that keeps my testosterone a week later at 3 p.m. at 777 is a reading that I got, which is right smack in the middle, around 800 of that 300 to 1100 range. And for me, I feel great. I sleep better, I feel clear, and I feel pretty good in the gym. I feel like I'm back to being able to lift weights and not have to worry about it. I don't feel lethargic at all. But I'll tell you, I didn't just gain a ton of body mass. I didn't lift and just get super huge and then I'm jacked. I still have to diet. I still have to do all the things that takes all the discipline to get in shape. So for you to live in this fallacy that I'm going to take it, I'm going to have this bravado, it's amazing. Well, not so much. One of the other things I'll tell you is when I started, I had to take an estrogen blocker because when your testosterone levels rise, so does your estrogen levels. And what that does is it tries to create this homeostasis in your body. And for me, my testosterone production naturally shot up in addition to what I was getting. So the estrogen levels shot up like crazy. I was watching Peaky Blinders with my wife on the couch and I got emotional. It was really weird. Same time I went to bed that night, I was really, really warm. I was having almost like hot flashes. I didn't know what was going on. I got in the shower and the water was spraying on me and I had crazy nipple sensitivity. And let me tell you, as a guy at I think 42 years old when I first started, that was a very odd sensation for me to have. And frankly, I now have a new respect for what it's like to be a woman because estrogen can mess you up. It took me about 3 weeks to a month to really get that sorted out with my doctor and get the estrogen blockers up high enough to where the numbers came down. At this point, currently, I'm still on an estrogen blocker, but a very, very low dose, in addition to that 110 milligrams. I'm also on something called HCG, which helps your body naturally keep up its own testosterone production. So some of the things I want to dispel with right now as far as speculation goes is you should not self-treat. Do not think you're going to go on Google and do all this research. You should pay for a physician. And if you can't pay for a physician, I would tell you then you're probably not ready for it. I would also say if your testosterone is in the normal range and you feel good, even if it's at 369 and you feel good, you need to treat your symptoms, not the number. One of the things I constantly hear men talk about is they obsess on the number, but they sound super, super healthy. Now, I will tell you some positive benefits. For the first couple months I had it, I was waking up with erections like I was 18 years old again, and it was all well and good and awesome, and it was a nice little throwback to when you were a kid, but it gets really annoying as an adult when you're sitting in meetings and things are all happening and you have no control over it. So it does bring a little bit of that nostalgia back, but it levels out. Now that it's been well over a year at this point that I've been doing it, what I can tell you is I feel totally normal. I feel like a normal adult with tons of energy. I would call it tantamount to being in my late 20s, early 30s as far as energy levels goes and as far as being able to lift, and my body is responding again. That is the most important thing for me. So is it going to make you a bodybuilder? No. Is it going to give you the opportunity to feel good, to get to the gym, to do all the things you need to do? Absolutely, if you were deficient. Feel free to ask any questions down in the comments. I will answer all of them. If you want to send me a DM on social media, DM me on Instagram. I always answer there. I will answer private questions, but I think it does help everybody when we ask in the community forum down below in the comments. Thank you for tuning in. We will catch you next week.